I want to bring in Michael Singh. He's a former senior director for Middle East Affairs at the National Security Council and currently is the managing director of the Washington Institute. And Michael, it was kind of a change of tone because it seemed just as last weekend that Secretary Kerry seemed to have a lot more patience with Syria. They were going to go down this diplomatic road. And here during this statement, he kind of restated his case, right, saying that they did use chemical weapons. There is absolute proof they used it and seeming to be running out of patience as we near this first deadline. What did you take away from that news conference?
Well, Trace, obviously this is a case that Secretary Kerry and the President have now been making for some time, that only the regime in Damascus could have used these weapons. And obviously the tone was impatient. A way to really diplomatically deal with the problem of chemical weapons and WMD and even serve as a model for other situations, but it has run into obstacles. And frankly, Trace, those obstacles were very predictable. We talked about those on this show and on other shows on Fox News. And I think now that they're hitting this, the question I think that I would pose to the administration that you don't hear much about is, what is the or else? And Secretary Kerry didn't really address that.
Right. Yeah, no, that's the big question. What is the or else? He knows that he's going to go into the UN Security Council next week. He knows that Russia has full veto power, and he knows that Russia is not going to back any type of use of force. So this seems to be a news conference kind of warming people up like, okay, we need your help. We need collectively to get behind this agreement we struck in Geneva last week. And the theme of this seems to be that we're not going to get the help, so maybe we go a different direction, Michael?
Well, it's unclear, and it does sort of sound like that, and you certainly don't hear any threat of the use of force, either from the United Nations Security Council or from the United States, from the administration. And I think that's a real problem here, because really when it comes down to it, the message that I think Assad and others will get out of this, despite the very sort of tough words from Secretary Kerry, is, look, it's been now weeks since Assad used chemical weapons, weeks since President Obama threatened the use of force, and yet there have really been no consequences for Assad. In fact, the war continues today in Syria, and he hasn't really been touched. And so going into, for example, talks with Iran, which was that last question that Secretary Kerry got there, what lesson will they draw from this?
Yeah, what lesson will they draw? I mean, are they just buying their own time to continue making their own nuclear weapons? And it's interesting because there have a lot of people have been saying that, you know, it seems to us that really the man who's running the Middle East policy now is Vladimir Putin. And you come out and you have John McCain writing an op-ed in a Russian website saying that Putin is repressive, among other things. Is there the sense that you had that maybe the administration feels that Putin is really getting ahead of this, is controlling things, and they're trying to gain back some of that control? Well, Trace, my view is that the Russians were able to seize an opportunity mainly because our own policy process here in the United States had been undisciplined. We were hesitant to take action after the president had set down his red line. And I think our allies around the world, Trace, are less concerned with what is Russia doing and is Russia calling the shots, and more with, is the United States really prepared to act to enforce the red lines we set down, to back up the commitments that we make, whether it's in the Middle East or, frankly, elsewhere around the world? And does Putin look like a hero, and does Assad look like a hero in the region, not only Syria, but in the region, for standing up to the United States? And does the United States appear like they're lagging behind, and maybe Secretary Kerry is saying it's time for us to kind of jump ahead of this game a little bit? Quickly, Michael.
Well, certainly I think that Russian influence increases as a result of this. I think that Syria and Iran have really escaped any consequences for what they're up to. But really what matters here, Trace, is the outcome. And that's why the or else is very important. I think without the credible threat of force, this isn't going to work.
Michael Singh, good of you to join us, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Trace.